So Christina Kayastha is a principal software engineer at Vista. She is a powerhouse innovator with 11 US patents and has won over 13 hackathons, including top titles at MIT and global tech competitions. She has delivered more than 50 keynote talks at prestigious platforms like TechCrunch, IEEE, and NFJS, sharing her expertise on AI, hardware, and innovation. Beyond building cutting edge tech, Christina mentors emerging talents through Incubate Nepal, empowering them to transfer bold ideas into real world impact. We are incredibly honored to have Christina as not just a keynote speaker, but also she has been a mentor for myself and Shrey throughout the planning of the hackathon. She's also going to be one of the judges. So, really excited for your keynote, Christina, and thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited for this hackathon. You guys can't even imagine. I think when I first heard about a Nepali hackathon, I was like, mind blown. Like, I don't even know that many Nepali coders personally. And so it's really exciting to see this group come together. Can you guys see my screen all right, by the way? See the whole thing? Pragya, can you see it?
Yes, I can see
Okay,
it.
great.
I think the participants can also see it, so good.
Okay, perfect. If you have any questions as we're going, just feel free to drop it in the chat as well. I'm happy to answer things after as well if we don't have enough time. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm hoping I can share a little bit of inspiration for you guys as you're starting on this weekend. So, my name is Christina. Namaste sabaijanalai. I'm a principal software engineer at Vista. I've been working in the industry for I actually just am celebrating 11 years today. So it's my work anniversary today. And I am currently doing my master's at MIT in system design and management. You can find me online at Christy Kayas on all of the platforms. But 10 years is a long time. And so in that time, I think these are my stats. I've, won in 13 hackathons. I've done tons. I've given tons of talks and a lot of conference talks as well. And I have 11 patents. But in order to build these stats, it took a bit of time. And so today I want to take a step back and look at how I got to this point. So 10 years ago, I was, a recent graduate. I did my bachelor's in computer science. I was a software engineer. I was a year working in the industry, really excited about my job. At the same time, I often felt like, this dog, I sort of know what I'm doing. I recently graduated. And, when my friends would say like, hey, can we build an app together? I'd be like, an app? Like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I can work on this tiny piece of code that is a small piece in my big company, but I've never built anything from scratch. I wouldn't even know how to start. So I struggled a lot with this notion of imposter syndrome, right? Like I was a software engineer. I had been working for a year, but I felt like maybe I shouldn't be a software engineer. Like, can I even call myself a software engineer when I'm talking to friends and they're asking me these things? I'm like, I have no idea. And so I was I was really struggling with this for a bit. And so everything changed when one day I had some work friends that came up and they were like, hey, we're going to this hackathon this weekend. Do you want to come with us? And I was like, sure. What's a hackathon? Like, I had never heard of a hackathon, which is surprising, even if I did CS. I guess at the time, hackathon culture wasn't as big, or, I didn't have friends. Like, I didn't have Nepali friends. I didn't have a lot of women in tech friends that were into this. And so I didn't even know what a hackathon was. So they were like, well, it's fine. Just come along with us. So I went. And the first hackathon that I went to was called AngelHacks 2015. And the theme of this hackathon was turning thoughts into things. And this has stuck with me over the years, but this theme was turning thoughts into things, turning your ideas and making them tangible. So I was really pumped. I went to this, didn't really know what to expect, brought my laptop, brought my energy. We started on Saturday and it ended on Sunday. So it was I think we started on Friday online, and then Saturday was in person, and then Sunday was the presentations, right? So we all went and we started this hackathon. And I remember feeling a little bit like this. It felt like everyone else sort of knew what they're doing, I was struggling with even getting my development work environment working. Like I didn't know how to use Git at the time because at work we used some like internal tool. I didn't know how to set up a new app. We spent like half a day just trying to figure out like what problem we were going to be even solving. So we spent a lot of time even trying to decide on where to get started. And I remember feeling so embarrassed because I was there with these like seniors at work that I looked up to, and I was like flunking this, this competition. I remember it was midnight, so we stayed overnight. I don't know why, but everyone seemed to be staying overnight, like working like through the burning the midnight oil. And outside the window, there were like, this was downtown Boston. Outside of the window, there were like all these party goers, like going out, like, walking down the streets. And we're like sitting there at midnight, and I'm thinking, what on earth am I doing? I was like fighting back tears. I was like, okay, gotta get something working, like trying my best. And then the next day came. We had hackathon presentations. Every team presented what they worked on, and I was amazed. Like these teams, in like the span of a day and a half, really 2 days, let's say, they had built these like polished-looking apps, these new ideas that they had just come up with during the hackathon, and they were presenting it in a way that everyone was really understanding it. I was like, oh my gosh, these are my heroes. Like, this is who I want to be when I grow up. Right. And as much as I think about how difficult it was to go through that weekend, um, I learned more in that 2 days than I had learned maybe in the last like 3 months at work. Kind of, it was like a completely different way of engineering. Like it was a completely different way of being a software engineer. And so, I did a very Christina thing to do. I looked at the calendar. I was like, okay, this summer, I'm going to go and find every single hackathon I can possibly find and sign up for it. So, my weekends looked like this. Like almost every weekend, I was going to a hackathon. And my goal was, it wasn't to win, right? Like I didn't really care about winning. I wanted to learn because I felt like I was learning so much in that short amount of time that every hackathon I went to, I was like, I don't want to repeat anything. I'm going to use a new technology, whether it's like learning what MongoDB is, learning how to use a database, learning how to build a mobile app, learning a new emerging technology, like how to develop for VR. Didn't matter what it was. I was like, I'm going to learn a new tech every single hackathon that I go to. And so my brother says I'm a very type A personality, but yeah, this is kind of my approach to how do you get better at hackathons. You just kind of do every single one. And so a year later, right, I did, most of the hackathons that I did in that first year because I was kind of like, that was my goal. And I went from being the person in the room or at my work that didn't know what hackathons were, the person that didn't really know about new technologies or that was almost really struggling at work, to someone that was constantly asking people, hey, like, do you want to go to this hackathon? I'm going to go next weekend. Or I'd drag my brother along. He's also in CS. And I went from completely not even being able to get a project started, and I started winning hackathons. And this was like, this felt amazing. So I want to, I'll share a few of the this is loud, but I'll share a few of my favorite projects that I worked on. Maybe this will just inspire you to think of some creative things that you could do this weekend. So this was one of my favorites. It was called HoloSense. This one, we worked on an augmented reality app to allow people that have visual impairments, so people that might be blind, in order to be able to see. And the way this worked was, we had never even touched augmented reality before this weekend. So we went there, they had these headsets for us to try. It was actually like the first Microsoft HoloLens, which came out like, just months ago. And so they taught us how to use it. We built an app, and basically like I could put the headset on, walk around with my eyes closed, and like see where I was going. It was really cool. It's kind of like the way sonar worked, but it was a really fun hackathon. This was one of the first ones that I won. It was called One Arm Band, and I went to this hackathon with. I borrowed this like a EMG, like a sensor that you put around your arm, and it can tell you like what muscles are contracting. So I brought the sensor with me, and I was like, okay, I don't know what I want to build, but I stood up and I pitched my idea. I was like, I want to build something. Like if someone wants to work with me, then come join me. Maybe I'll do something like musical, right? Like that was pretty much all I had at the beginning. And so it was the first time I was pitching an idea. And so I was really nervous, but it was really cool because I got all of these people that I had never worked with join the project. We kind of like, again, we didn't stay overnight, but it was quite difficult getting this team to work together. And so I found myself like trying to get people to collaborate. How do we split up work? Like, we don't have much time. So like, how do we get everything running smoothly? And so it's like, you don't only learn technology, but you learn all of these like soft skills as well. How do you pitch ideas? How do you run a team? How do you manage like people and projects, especially when things are like really high pressure, high stakes environments, right? So this was one that we ended up winning as well. This one is another project. The one reason I wanted to share with you is this was one of the first projects that I worked on that ended up living beyond the hackathon. So came to this hackathon, someone else came with an Amazon Echo. So if you have a Google Home or if you know like Siri, right? Like Amazon Alexa is like this device here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's this like tower. It's just a speaker and you can talk to it and it'll, respond. And I'll remind you, this is a few years ago. And so AI was not that good. Speech to text was not that good. And any conversational applications that you were building were very sequential and more conditional driven. And so I'd never worked with this before, but someone was like, I have this, I want to hack it. I don't know how to hack it, but if you want to hack it, then join me. I was like, okay, sounds like a plan. So we came, and then we were joined by a doctor who's works at a emergency in the emergency room. And he was saying how like one of the problems that doctors have is that when they're bringing in patients, it takes a long time to pull up their information because they have to navigate the UI. And in the operating room, there's like, you have to have everything sterile, right? So like you can't have keyboards and monitors. It's like very annoying to have. And so he was like, what if I could use voice in order to pull up information about the patients? And so we built this hack that basically, you would talk to it and say like, hey, can you pull up John Doe's latest blood test results? And it would pull it up on the screen. So we won that hackathon. And then a few of us were like, oh, like maybe we should do this again. This seems like there's actual potential. So we went to another hackathon and we did a similar idea, just iterating on it and working with a different electronic health record system. But even past that, we felt like we had something that could turn into something bigger. And so this is kind of like the idea. We were like, okay, we want to make it, instead of it being this tower, we want to make it a phone app so it's a lot more accessible. And then we want to be able to automatically also like scribe and take notes for doctors as as they're talking to patients. So we competed in the MIT 100K. We went through the second round, which is Accelerate, which was really fun because I feel like we got to figure out how to pitch this idea and build a business plan. At the time, I was the only coder. By this point, I was the software engineer, but there were like 4 people on the team, right? There was someone that was a business expert. There was someone that was a healthcare expert. There was someone that was a design expert. And so for me, I was learning a ton about working with these people that were not in my function. So even in this hackathon today, you don't have to work with just coders, right? Like think about who's on your team, what kind of skills you need, and people might specialize in different things. But they ended up continuing the project. They launched a startup in Mass Challenge. I wasn't involved further on, but it was really cool to be part of something that ended up launching. This is another one of my favorites, EnergyB. How do you gamify energy savings? We built this like cute web app that would basically tell you how much power you're using and compete with your neighbors. This one we went through like a accelerator. So post hackathon, after we won, they were like, okay, like if you want to continue this project, we're going to support you and teach you how to like work on a startup, right? And so it kind of ended up continuing there as well. And then this one is my favorite. It's called Parkabler. What ended up happening was a physical therapist came up to me and she was like, Christina, I have patients that are missing my physical therapy appointments because they can't find parking in Boston. So I got a group of volunteers and she got a group of volunteers and walked around Boston and mapped parking. But she was like, I have no idea how to turn this into an app. And by this time I was like, okay, let's do it. So we built a prototype. We won this one, and then we got funding in order to continue doing some UX research. So we had like participants come in this other room, and we had a UX firm help us run usability tests on this project in order to figure out, okay, like how do we turn this into a real app? Like what is useful, what is difficult? We ended up getting a grant from the Attorney General's office to continue this development. And it was so amazing to run these usability tests for people with persons with disabilities, because you learn about how people use your app when you're watching them. And so think about all of the people that are actually going to be using the products you're building. You're not just building this for the weekend, right? You're building it to solve a real problem. So really think about who you're trying to solve this for. So yeah, this one was sort of a startup, kind of ended up fizzling out. It's totally fine. I am, not a successful entrepreneur, but I think the end of the hackathon is the beginning of your entrepreneurship journey. So I feel like there's so much you can do here. So there are lots of these. I'm not going to go over them. That's how 10 years later, I have these 13 hackathons. Conference talks were really similar. Again, I'm not going to dive into this too much, but similar to hackathons, my work friends were like, hey, do you want to go to a tech meetup? And I was like, sure, what's that? And they were like, okay, Christina, just come along. So I went to this Boston JS one, and I watched a speaker present code, do a presentation and live code. They were writing code live on stage in front of hundreds of people. And I was like, wow, I want to do that. So again, I did a very Christina thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to do one public speech each week, smell the flowers really intensely. And then that's how I ended up getting off.
I just wanted to interrupt real quick. So
Yeah.
we have time, so you can definitely go through them.
Oh, we do. Okay. I wasn't
want to go
sure.
3 slides back.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I mean, the point that I'm trying to say with this one really is that similar to hackathons, the way that you approach getting good at something is really to put yourself out there, right? It doesn't matter if you're if you don't know what you're doing. Just set a goal for yourself, set an extreme goal for yourself, and just ruthlessly go after it. That's kind of what I want you guys to take away from this. In the end, my conference talks, one of the first conference talks I did was called Hack It Till You Make It. And it was because I did all these hackathons that I built up this experience that when I went and gave the proposal for doing this talk, it got accepted. But this is the largest conference for women in computing in the US, Grace Hopper Conference. And there were 300 people that came to watch me talk about hackathons. And I was like, why are these people coming to listen to me? I was still struggling with this imposter syndrome, right? But I think at the end of the day, that work that I put in and that struggle that I saw and that feeling of insecurity was the fuel that I needed in order to go after these goals, right? So I did a ton of talks, and the things that I learned at hackathons helped me here directly. I did the HoloLens hackathon, and then I did talks about how do you program for the HoloLens. There was sometimes with these talks as well, similar to hackathons, where I'm like, I want to do something new. I never repeat a talk, right? Every time I do a talk, I come up with new content. Like for today, this is all new content. Every single conference I do, I'm like, okay, I want to present something new so that I'm learning something new. And when AI was starting to be a thing, I was like, I don't know how to do any machine learning stuff. So what am I going to do? I'm going to sign up to do a talk. I wrote a proposal. I'm going to teach TensorFlow 101. And then I was like, okay, I have 2 months in order to learn TensorFlow so that I can teach it. And the thing is, that's how 10 years later, I built up these conference talks. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but going to these hackathons, practicing presenting ideas, and really understanding technology deeply was teaching me how to innovate. And I didn't plan for this, but that's how I ended up working on all of the patents. Because at work, I started being known as the hackathon queen. My friends would tease about that. But then I would also organize a ton of hackathons. And hackathons are a great way to not just come up with new ideas, but also figure out, okay, what is the prototype? How do I sell this idea? How do I explain what my idea is? And that feeds directly into public speaking. So it's not enough for you to really just code. You also need to be able to present and pitch your ideas. And together, when you have these, you get really good at innovating. And you get good at that early stage prototype development, which is so valuable. And that's what ends up getting patented, right? You only get patents if not just if you have an idea, but if you can explain why that's useful and explain how that is relevant to your business or relevant to the product you're developing. So with that, I guess 10 years ago, 10 years later, I often think back to my first hackathon. I don't know for how many of you this is your first hackathon. Maybe it is your 20th hackathon. That's totally okay. But think back to your first hackathon. If today is your first hackathon, that's great too. It's possible that today will go amazingly. Maybe you'll win, maybe you won't. But either way, I'm hoping there's a moment in this hackathon that you can reflect on. That's a core memory for you, whether it's a mix of happiness and sadness or anger and frustration, whatever that is. I hope you take away that feeling of struggling and then realizing you've grown from it, because you're going to grow so much this weekend. I'm so excited for you. I'm so jealous of you. I want to do the hackathon myself, honestly speaking, but it is going to be amazing. And so this is a really short summary. What is my recipe for a successful hackathon? Now, notice I didn't say for winning a hackathon. I don't think everyone can win a hackathon and place first place, but you can have a successful hackathon. And many of my most successful hackathons are ones that I haven't won. So I want you to take a minute here and write down in the chat, what is the one thing that you want to change in yourself? Is it something you want to learn? And as I'm talking, please write in the chat. Do you want to learn a new technology? Do you want to learn, how to use AI? Do you want to learn how to code maybe? Do you want to learn how to design something? Or do you want to learn how to public speak? Do you want to learn how to pitch your idea? There are so many things that you can learn in this 2 days that I really want you to think about. And so think about, what is that one thing that you want to change in yourself? So I'll check the chat in a second to see what you guys have come up with, but please do share them and write it. I'm really serious about it. Write it down for yourself, because then you can look back on this moment many years in the future. But what is one thing that you want to change in yourself? And then the second is, what is one thing you want to change in the world? So during the hackathon, you'll work on a project, and at the end of it, you're going to present it. And I can't wait to see what you all come up with. But think about, what is it that you want people that are watching your presentation, people that hear about your idea, what is it that you want them to take away? What is the change that you want to make in the world? And this doesn't mean you have to solve, I don't know, world hunger or whatever, right? It could be a tiny thing. You could say I want people to walk away from this and understand how, I'm getting stuck on this old example, but I want people to understand how you could use a HoloLens in order to build a sonar app, right? Think about, it doesn't have to be world changing, but it will change. If you can influence at least one other person, then that will be a success. So for me, the one thing I want to change in myself is, AI has completely changed the game in terms of how hackathons work. I went to a hackathon last year, and I was working on it with 2 college students, and I was amazed at how they're using AI tooling in order to work on the hackathon projects. And so that's the one thing I want to learn, is to see how you guys use AI. I want to learn from you. And then the one thing I want to change in the world is I really want to inspire you to think of this hackathon not just as this a weekend thing, but the hackathon, today's hackathon, is just a starting line. So I really want you to think about, enjoy this weekend, have fun, and then on Monday morning, when you wake up, think about that goal that you had and think about how you're going to take it forward. I am really excited to be working with the winning team directly. So I'm hoping to be able to coach you guys in order to build up your project. But regardless of whether you're a winning team or not, you can feel free to reach out to me whenever. I am honestly this is such an amazing thing that we're building this for the Nepali community, and I couldn't be more proud of this group for organizing it. So I hope you guys have fun. Good luck on the hackathon. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But thanks, guys. That's all I have for now. I will stop sharing.